What's up, buddy? How are you?
Get my sound up here. Hey there, how are you?
I'm doing great. How's everything going?
I'm doing just fine. I'm
Great.
having a pretty good summer and a pretty good year so far.
Awesome. I'm glad we could get back together.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, to tell the truth, I'm so, used to, like, we tried to meet, what, like 2 times, 3 times before, and I forget.
Well, I thought it was only once, but maybe I believe
No,
it.
maybe you're not. I'm sorry. I have, like, been, I have found that I have gotten so many interviews in just the past couple of months, really, that I can keep rescheduling constantly, and I have things written down, but unfortunately, I can't keep everything in my head, so I may be slightly confused.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got with you about 2 weeks ago, and then I had
Oh, yes.
we had really bad reception, and then I was at work on stage because I'm an MC on Bourbon Street, and somebody accidentally elbowed my microphone into my teeth and broke my front two teeth out, so they had to cut my teeth out and then put screws into my head. It was really
Yeah,
bad.
I don't think you explained this at the time. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, you seem, your mouth, your face looks great.
Thank you. Well, for about 2 weeks there, I just basically laid there, and I'm actually wearing these are dentures right now until they put the new ones in. My partial denture anyway, but I couldn't even wear that for a couple weeks after the surgery, so I just didn't really go out very much because that's not really the look I'm going for.
Wow, I can imagine it must have been like a pretty shocking blow at the time.
It was hard for me to look at myself really for a few days after it happened. It was very like alarming initially because like it wasn't like a subtle thing. It was just like bam, you look
It's not the kind of thing you can miss if
right.
it's only the look in the face.
Yeah, but it was bad. But everything's okay now. They just took out the stitches like 2 days ago, and they said that it was healing up good. So I still have to wait 4 months until they can actually put the screws in because they had to give me a bone graft into my jaw so it would grow around the screws that are now in my head. So yeah.
And your speech doesn't really seem affected at all.
Thank you. I've been practicing, like, at first I had like a lisp, kind of, but I have to kind of over pronunciate a little bit, but
I understand.
it's not too bad.
I'm sure you'll get used to it. Your whole mouth and jaw sort of have to readjust to the new situation.
Yeah, I'll be happy when all this is over. I'm feeling better about it. I was kind of down for a little while, but I feel you get used to anything, basically. I feel like it'd be the same way if you got your arm cut off or something. I mean, that would obviously suck a lot worse, but...
I gotta tell you it is, because I mean, just speaking from personal reference, I got diagnosed about in about 2015 with a disease of the muscles.
Uh-oh.
It took like a couple of years to figure out what was going on with me, and I was semi-paralyzed. I was constantly unable to feel safe just even walking from room to room because I was weak. I was very unbalanced, and they eventually figured out what it was. Fortunately, some medication that handles it, and I'm like 85% back to normal.
Good.
But the thing is, I mean, it's like that's the case. Depending on the type of person you are, I mean, I think there's some people who they're struck with something and they can't cope with it, and they go into a serious depression. It's just like I just sort of like quickly adjusted. It's like, oh, all right, well, I can't walk and I can't do this and I can't do that. Well, fuck that. I don't have time for this. I gotta go all of my life.
Yeah, I think my brain is like it'll feel so much pressure and I'll be like overcome, and then eventually I just hit a wall kind of, and my brain's like, you're out of juice, like you're done with this, you can't worry about it as much anymore, like that's all you got, so then I feel better normally. But for about a week I'll be like, then I feel a lot better.
Welcome back, man.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. Glad you could come back. So, Normally when we start our interviews, we ask the people, what is your favorite movie of all time?
But I can't answer that question.
You got to answer. Give me a top 5, top 10.
I can't, I honestly don't think like that. And a lot of stuff, I mean, based on what people know me for, I have like, I love horror movies, and I'm very familiar and versed in horror movies, and many of my favorites are there. But I like movies of like all sorts, anyway, from all times, from countries all over the world. I mean, you probably learn more about me by just me saying things. I mean, I love, I love older films. I'm a film historian. I'm very interested in how this medium came to be and how it developed and how the language of film developed. I love black and white. I love silent films. I have a big affection for silent comedy. I have my probably the horror movies that have most influence on me are older black and white horror films, and although I've continued to keep up with everything in the genre pretty much since. I don't usually. I'm not a fan of things like top 10 lists and the best of lists and things like this, because I think ultimately that comes down to opinions in so many cases, and everyone is going to have a different opinion and a different point of view and come from a different place.
Right.
So I can't, like, it's not the question. Every time I'm asked that question, I feel stuck because it's not like I have like an immediate like go-to list, like boom, 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 boom. I'm always looking for my new favorite movie.
Right. Yeah, me too. And about black and white movies, like, I love them. Like, they cannot be replicated. There's some beauty to it that cannot be captured nowadays. Like,
I think in the days of black and white, and I think this has to do also with just the previous decades and the way that art was looked at, etc. But especially like the studio films from like the 20s into the 50s are just like gorgeous looking for the most part. The craftsmanship is like primary in those films. I think it's something we've sort of fallen away from over the years in many ways. I think I think people still can make great looking films, but I think less emphasis is put on that. I think less emphasis is put on making the image the primary thing.
right. And I also feel like due to CGI, there's a huge lack of creativity because if I want a dragon in my movie back in in the 50s or the 20s or whatever, I'm going to have to figure out how to make a dragon, but in CGI, you can just go poof, a dragon,
Right. And I think CGI is a great advancement. I think there's a lot of wonderful stuff that we've never been able to do before that CGI lends itself to. But as I'm constantly reminded, and as fans of my films talk about all the time, there's a real, amongst people who love film, know film, there's a preference for the older style of a lot of these type of effects. And I think that's partially just because there's like an unconscious, like a sort of a subliminal reaction that your mind and your sensibilities has to a lot of this stuff. It's like CGI can look great in terms of like detail, and it has this sense of realism. But I guess what bothers me with a lot of CGI is it looks what I call hyper real. It looks like it looks real, but I've never seen anything real that looks like this.
Right.
How it moves, in terms of how it feels. In fact, if I saw this on the street, I would say, wow, that looks like CGI.
Yeah, I felt like that about Transformers. Everybody was like, wow, they look so good. But I never thought this is a real machine flipping around. Like,
Well, that's the thing. I think what CGI artists do and have been doing for quite a number of years at this point is they're so enamored of the level of detail that they can get to, because they can. You can have amazing fine detail, but in real life, your eye can't even perceive that much detail in those things.
right.
The Transformers, you see them on screen, and it's like your brain brain is basically telling you, all right, this can't be real because there is nothing that exists that looks like that.
Right. Yeah, I think just a mix of the two. I think you don't need to use CGI for like absolutely everything, and I think that's the biggest problem. CGI is obviously a great tool, but they just use it for stuff they don't even have to, you know? I feel like that
Well,
would
no,
be
it's used in just, average everyday movies that don't even necessarily require special effects. It's used as basically a safety measure too, because so many things find a tiny detail they want to change, or they have something they want to take out of a shot, and bam, they can do it now.
hmm
And I think that's part of what's made filmmakers lazier.
that's like in ET when they replaced the guns with the walkie-talkies.
Right.
Steven,
That was for a different reason, but yeah.
right. Well, Steven Spielberg came back and said that he regretted that now, so that's good.
Well, basically him at the time doing what he thought was politically correct due to whatever the climate of things at that time was in that year. And I don't know. I mean, you look back on it, and now, I mean, there's even more, I think, awareness and emphasis on things that people might be sensitive to one way or another. And my feeling is like you make something, you make a film, or you write something, it should stand as what it is when it was done, when it was created, and it exists in the context of being created then.
Right. And then also if you chase what's politically correct currently, that will never end. I think every 5 years you'd have to make a new ET at that point.
Sort of, yeah, but I think we've been for the past few years, and I don't know how long it will continue, but the whole, there's such a rebellion now to political correctness and all this other stuff, and my feeling is it's like anything else, it's like suddenly there's a realization that something may have been like unfair, or somebody may not have been treated properly, but and then there's a tremendous overcompensation to try and correct that, and it takes a while for things to balance out, I think.
I agree. So, how did you get into movies in the first place, like acting and writing and producing?
I got into movies because I got very interested in films at about the age of 12 or 13. And I started collecting. I had friends who were film collectors on 8 millimeter and then eventually 16 millimeter. And that's how I very much got into older films too, because generally if you're trying to collect film, you could only buy older films. And, for me, it gave me, first of all, in those days, before everybody had a big screen TV, it was terrific to be able to, run a movie on a big picture on your wall and, invite friends over. And, so I got very, into doing just home screenings all the time. And, and I had a voracious interest in the history of the medium. And like I said, I think it's kind of fascinating because film is this thing that sort of came to be, and I think when it first started, I don't think there was any idea of the potential of what you could really do with it in telling a story. And it's an art form that sort of had to be figured out and pieced together, and ideas had to be stumbled upon by hundreds of different people to try and make up this new language of a medium that no one had used before.
Right. And how important it's become is so cool.
It's now the language of society and civilization with images.
Right.
Images with sound.
I agree. And I mean, it changes the way people think, like politically, like everything, really. Like even the way that the future has turned out. A lot of people, a lot of scientists and stuff, when they were little kids, were watching movies like, I want to make that thing that I saw on Star Trek, And then they did.
Right.
It's very cool. So,
I personally, I'm pretty happy with, people are like still complaining about, like, why don't we have flying cars yet, and time machines and all this other stuff.
yeah.
But
Wait, say that again. I lost you for a second.
no, I said it's like, I don't, I'd love to have a flying car, but given a choice, I would take the internet over flying cars because the internet brings me the world.
Yeah, agreed. We can learn a lot more with that, but I would enjoy a flying car too.
Sure, yeah. I want to be on
Amen. Now we're talking. Did you start acting, or were you writing before that?
Like I said, I started collecting and getting and just watching and getting very into that end of things. And the next step was I wanted to make films. So I started, I was like 13 years old or something, and I got my first Super 8mm camera and started doing stuff with that. I was lucky enough by the time I got into high school, my high school actually had an accredited cinematography course, so I literally had like a class for 2 full years that allowed the opportunity to make films. We had a film festival at the end of the year. So at the time, it was something fairly unique in high school.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've noticed, so you have a lot of horror movie stuff that you've done. Is that deliberate, or was that just kind of the way it happened to be?
It's deliberate, but also, and this is probably true to this day, but the movie that you're the least likely to lose money with is probably a horror movie. Or at least something with the same kind of, it goes for action movies and other things too, but I think a horror movie was, especially back, 70s, 80s, 90s, was just like, all right, if you're going to make a film, if you're going to make your first film, make a horror movie, because your odds of seeing a profit and then getting to make another film is far greater than most, if you just chose a straight drama or something that didn't have sort of a built-in audience that, which is hard to have unless you have, movie stars or something, some known commodity.
Huh. I've never thought about that. That's a good point. How did you end up getting into Dawn of the Dead?
I had at the time, I had two partners on Spookies, Thomas Doran and Brendan Faulkner, and we had met in a college course a few years earlier. We all had very similar aspirations and tastes. We wanted to make movies. We were very influenced by older films, and we spent a lot of years, really. I mean, Spookies was sort of the end result of a number of years and unfulfilled projects. I mean, we did promos for several films that never got into any, full-length feature form. We kept trying to get the films made and failing a lot. I mean, I think most filmmakers go through that. It's just generally, unless you've got a golden ticket to Hollywood, getting every project financed is a major, major effort.
Right. So when you're there, what do you remember about like the days of shooting and stuff? Like what are your memories of the shoot?
Of that shoot, or just,
Yeah, that one.
Shooting, we were shooting on film, which most people are not doing anymore for the most part. It was a much more physical and tiring operation, I'd say, than shooting video is now. Obviously heavier equipment and etc. And people are still shooting film, but for the most part, most studios, most producers, most directors have opted to go with video because everything is lightweight. It's easier to light. Things move much more quickly. Films get made far more quickly these days than they once did.
Yeah.
But I think it was there was a real sense of physical struggle, and I think there still is probably, but it was probably a little bit greater when the camera, like a 35mm camera, was not something you could just casually pick up and take over to the other side of the set. You need several people just to get it from one place to another.
Right. Where in Dawn of the Dead, were you did you ever meet Tom Savini or?
I didn't know that part of it. I sort of cut myself off there.
Oh, sorry.
My partner Brendan and I got word that there was a sequel to Night of the Living Dead being made in Monroeville, near Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania, and that was like, wow, well, we obviously have to go and be in it, and we knew they needed zombie extras, and unfortunately there was just a major blizzard that day that we set out, so we drove for 12 hours in totally blinding snow, and finally got out there.
That's crazy.
which at the time was like a reasonable amount of money, but it was not a big budget film by any means.
Right.
And so we got onto it. We were cast as zombies. We got into a scene which we thought we could cut out of the film because Romero went out there was improvising stuff. He had shot almost everything he needed, and he was shot now. He had little time and money, and he was just playing with ideas that he thought maybe he could use. And then one of those was the scene towards the climax where the biker gang breaks into the mall, and then they're messing around with the zombies, and they break into a bakery and they start getting the zombies with pies. Right?
Yeah.
So my partner and other friends of mine got hit with pies, and I got sprayed in the face with Seltzer by Tom Savini.
That's awesome. That's my favorite part of the movie. That was cool. I thought.
That was like so. That's what I really when we were there, Romero said, "Well, here's what I want to do." I realized, all right, this is like different than any movie I can think of. I don't think any other horror movie has gone from like explicit gore to like this kind of like basically just slapstick and somebody having fun.
Right.
And I think he didn't know if it would work. And I guess in the cutting, he must have gotten great reactions because it's all still in the movie. So I'm in a scene that's fairly well known, and I have a part that I can point out and say, hey, look, I'm the Seltzer zombie.
Right. Yeah, I feel like it worked because the rest of the movie is so stressful that it's like, okay, good. Oh, because you just feel like the entire movie, because it's very realistic. I feel like if that were to happen, as realistic as a zombie movie can be, I think that's why it struck a chord with so many people, because it's like he really sat down and thought this out. Okay, what would happen if this really actually happened? And I think that's why it stood out so well.
It was also the first, as far to my knowledge, and I thought so at the time, and I haven't rethought it since, but it was the first action adventure horror film.
Ah.
And that changed the game, if you know what I'm saying. It sort of raised the ante. It wasn't just like, oh, you'll have 10 minutes and then people will hang out and let's talk, and then and then there's a monster for 2 minutes or something. This movie was entirely at fever pitch almost the entire time.
Right. Yeah. It was very good. I rewatched it again, in preparation for these, and I was like, this is a very good film. It's a smart movie, and I really appreciate it a lot. When you were being a zombie, what were you thinking? What were you doing? How do you act like a zombie?
How can I think of a zombie?
Right. Well, what were your instincts then as a zombie?
Well, it's my instinct. I sort of, I'm conscious enough to see things and walk around and be uncoordinated, etc. But George had to give me some special direction because when Savini told me to hit me in the face with the Seltzer, it was like bang right in the eyes, which kind of hurt.
Oh.
And I reacted. And he goes, no, you can't react. You're a zombie. And I had to say, all right, well, yeah, but this is like two sticks being poked in my eye.
Right.
I managed to get a couple of good takes off, but it was the kind of thing where I wasn't prepared for how much pain there would be involved.
Yeah, I've spilled carbonated drinks on myself, and it burns, and I can only imagine in the eyes. So not feel good. So so obviously, Dawn of the Dead inspired basically most of the zombie stuff that we have now, whether it be
Dawn of the Dead is Night of the Living Dead alone was a landmark film. It sort of approached horror in a different way. It was kind of a throwback to the older black and white horror movies, but at the same time, it was looking forward in terms of how explicit you can get and how really horrible things could get. And Dawn, I think, was similarly innovative in different ways. At the time, I'm sure Romero didn't realize it was going to become such a major trend.
Right.
And I think what it eventually turned into, it's now one of the staples of horror. Just the cannibalistic zombie or the homicidal zombie. I'm not a big fan of fast-moving zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because the term zombie essentially means, a living, dead body. It's not supposed to be able to run.
Right.
For me, once they start running, they're just like monsters possessed or they have a disease or something, but they're not zombies.
Right. Yeah, that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you. If somehow that were to happen, how would you think they would be? Like, do you think it'd be more like Dawn of the Dead, or do you think it'd be a little different?
Yeah, well, if corpses were to be reanimated, first of all, the human body, once it's actually dead, does kind of stiffen up a lot. It's not like, with some of these films where the zombies are like in marathon runners, basically.
Right.
And that type of stuff could be effective. I think, in particular, some of the Korean zombie films and recent TV series have done like an awful lot to make that work.
Right.
It's a different dynamic. The Romero zombie and everything that sort of came from that is very dependent. It's slow moving, but there's an awful lot of them, and eventually you're going to get into a situation where you can't really do anything about them.
Right. Yeah. So in that scenario, what are you going to do? Say tomorrow there's a zombie apocalypse and you want to live, obviously. So what are you going to do?
Well, nowadays, I sort of feel like everybody would take a similar attitude in that, well, I've seen a million of these movies. I know exactly what to do.
Right.
And then you probably found that in real life, that what works in the movies doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, because everybody can't live in Walmart, because that would be what I would want to do. Just go hide in Walgreens or something.
I think it's weird too, because it's like, I realize like with the COVID thing, it's like, and like, so many people just blew it off or didn't want to get vaccinated or whatever. And at that point I realized, all right, if we actually had what would be considered a zombie apocalypse, everybody would be a zombie because no one would pay attention. People would get sick so quickly that there'd be no going back.
I agree. I have a very low view of general humanity, so I feel like 90% of people would be zombies like that fast.
Well, and as they were turning into zombies, they'd be denying that they were zombies.
Yeah. Like, no, you're a zombie. Yeah, that fits into my worldview perfectly. So, of all this new media that has come about of all the zombie stuff, what are you liking? Like, what are you like? That's what I'm talking about.
Specifically the zombie genre, as I mentioned, I've liked stuff I've seen come out of Korea in the past few years. There was Train to Busan, which I think sort of was the first really big film that had international success. And then there were several TV series that were out in the past few years that I thought were pretty impressive. We Are All Dead at a high school. I don't know if you saw that.
Mm-mm.
It was like 12 episodes of high school kids they were trapped at their school fighting zombies.
Oh.
And it's like I sort of feel like if this was done as an American series, it would get tiresome after 3 episodes or something. It would just start to get it would drag. I just instinctively feel that this just somehow worked. It felt very fresh. The dramatic situations worked. There were entire 1-hour episodes that were nothing but suspense and action. And that's something we really don't see in episodic television now.
Huh. I'm gonna have to look that up. I've never heard of that. Do you really play video games, or not really, or have you?
I play video games, but infrequently. And to tell the truth, part of it is sort of like a number of years back. I realized after sitting like down and like getting up 8 hours later and just playing video games, I realized, all right, I have to not get addicted to this.
Right.
Because I have so many other things I'm interested in and so many other distractions. And meanwhile, I sort of want to create and do things, and you have to sort of you have to draw lines somewhere.
Right.
I'm very inspired by things. It's like for me, it's like I see a great video game, and I just want to like sort of say, all right, I need to take a break from the game. I just want to wander this environment and see what's here.
Yeah, I'm the same way. See, I feel exactly the same way you do, because I do a lot of stuff. Like if I'm not doing the interviews, I'm doing my shows on Bourbon, and I'm actually making a film by myself where I play every character, and it's over 2 hours, and it's all shot on a green screen. And I've been working on it for 2 years. But during the pandemic, I don't know how I ran into it, but I played Resident Evil, and I was in love. I have every single one of them I could buy after that. Have you ever played those? They are incredible.
I have. Actually, the last time I actually played Resident Evil was probably one of the much earlier editions of the game, where probably within the first 5 or 6 years or so, I'm thinking, when the first ones came out. And at that time, that was like pretty impressive, even though like today's standards, it's like, it's almost nothing.
Yeah, if you get a chance, you should check out some of the newer ones, because they directly stated that Dawn of the Dead was one of their biggest influences for those games, and that's all I play. Like, I don't play, I'll play them, and then I'll wait till they make a new one, and then never touch my Xbox again. But yeah, I was just gonna say, those are great, and it's funny that they actually said specifically the movie that you were in is what gave them the idea to do it at all.
It's interesting because I'm not a fan of the Resident Evil movies. I feel like they just threw away the premise of the games to do an entirely different type of movie. And unfortunately, they were so popular, they made like 10 of them or whatever. And speaking of CGI, those movies totally like alienate me. They so overuse CGI.
I agree. Those movies suck, and I hate those movies, and I am like, it is such an injustice, because the games, I mean, they get a little weird sometimes and a little silly, but I mean, there's totally some really good movies in there somewhere if you just followed the story of the game. So
it makes no sense to me when somebody just takes something that has an imaginative premise that you can do all kinds of things with, and then like boils it down to just a few elements, and then that's what they decide to make a movie for.
Yeah, before I actually became an actor, I was doing extra work, and I talked to, I was sitting down eating lunch on set, and I happened to sit by this guy, and he was the director of one of those recent handheld camera kind of movies. I forgot what. Yeah, found footage. It's the one that was really big, really big, that happened.
Blair Witch.
Not Blair Witch. It was a little bit after that.
Paranormal Activity.
Yes, it was. And I didn't know who he was at the time, and I was sitting there, and I was like, I know that these people that make movies are generally pretty intelligent, and I feel like sometimes they're just making movies for dummies. And he was like, well, I didn't know who he was. He was like, well, that's most people, so that's the money.
I sort of feel the same way, and here's the thing. I'm not, I will make the exception for Spookies, because the film Spookies, when we made it, the film we made was a film we were ordered to make, more or less.
I like that. That is a stylistic kind of, like a fun thing. There's a difference to me between something that's like silly and fun, and then something that's just hurts your brain to watch. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I try to have respect for the audience, and especially with, stuff I've done in years since, and things I'm still trying to do. I want to, I don't want to make I love cheesy hack bad movies. That's not what I aspire to make. I want to try and make great movies. It's really hard, but that's what I want to do.
Yeah, the thing is, like, there are a lot of movies that I love that are like that, but these people are, like, trying, and they put a lot of thought into it. They're not just, like, corporate machines that are pumping out lowest common denominator stuff. That's what I have a problem with. Like, if they're intentionally, like, keeping it down, I don't like that. But, so, Spookies, tell me about that. So, you wrote that, and co-wrote it, and produced it. And this was before Dawn of the Dead? that you had done
This
that?
was slightly this was we did the Dawn of the Dead appearance, etc., and then spent a number more years of still trying to get various projects underway, shooting promos for films that never got completed, that sort of thing. And then in roughly 1984, we made Spookies after meeting a guy from England, Michael Lee, who ran the infamous Vidco Video, which was the company that became famous for putting on most of the video nasties in England at the time when they were censoring things all over the place. And so he made a fortune because he was essentially showing, gore pornography and making a fortune off of it.
Wow. Like, that, I feel like with Spookies, there's a lot of like gore and like crazy kind of stuff like that, but it has like a good heart about it. It's not like evil or anything.
I don't know how much you've heard, but the film was like, and then when we finished shooting the film, we had a rough cut. We got into an argument with the backer who had been like writing us constantly throughout the entire production and was just merciless. And we eventually just had to walk right out. We couldn't take being abused anymore. And his solution, we thought he was first just going to have to, get somebody else in to edit a final version of the film. And he hooked up with a woman who was an editor, she was also a pornographer and a fairly well-known porn actress at the time. And she became not just a new editor, but she convinced him to put up more money, scrap roughly half of what we had shot, and she put in new scenes and insert a framing story, which the film really suffers from in its current form.
Yeah, I would like to see the original. Does that still exist? Or
No, I'm asked this question like every week. As
sorry.
far as we know, from the mouth of our backer, he disposed of all that footage many, many years ago, which is true to form. I mean, I can't see him being willing to, at the time, put up the money to store it. I mean, film has to be stored under the proper conditions, cost money. He doesn't want to spend money.
Yeah, that sucks.
And the irony is that if that stuff existed now, first of all, we would have to be myself and I had two partners. My one partner, Brendan Faulkner, is still living, but we would have to be the ones to recut it because that's the only version the fans want.
Right. Yeah, I think it still came out good though. Like, I'm sure it would have been much better.
Here's the thing. The real problem with it is that it's two films fighting for attention within one film. And so a story starts with certain characters, then boom, you're suddenly with these different characters. You don't know what's going on, you don't know how anything connects. Then you're following that for a few minutes, then boom, you're back with the first characters. And this is not a way to tell a story. And I can say, and for years, I, myself, and my partners were disgusted with what had happened and just pretty much found ourselves faced with having to disown the movie because we couldn't claim, this was our vision or this is what we had in mind in any way. And it wasn't until very recently, only with at the end of 2019, the Blu-ray edition came out, restored from the original negative, and the film was really sort of rediscovered by most horror fans. I mean, it had been around for years, but there hadn't been a U.S. video release since the original release, which was around 1985, 86.
Wow. And
So
there's a new DVD of it now, like that came out recently.
Blu-ray, 2-disc Blu-ray edition. It did really well. Literally, Spookies became suddenly sort of an official part of the 80s, horror, genre, pantheon of monsters and certain key films. And it's now quite well known by a lot of fans who, for a long time, had no. It was there in bad copies on places like YouTube, but there was no good copy. Nobody had gone out of their way to put Spookies into a special edition until Vinegar Syndrome realized that there was actually was a demand for it because people for years had been asking when it was going to come out, and it was a chance to tell our story. So there is a feature-length documentary is part of the set that goes into great detail about what happened, how we went into this project with so much goodwill and so much hope to make the best film we could under whatever limitations we might have had. And our backer was basically a paranoid megalomaniac. He
I hate that.
It was not the way to make a film, and it was unfortunate because we had no ill intentions, but his background, I think, was very much he always seemed to feel like everyone in the world was looking to cheat him out of something. So I think he was, without any tangible reason to think so, I think his attitude with us was simply, these guys are going to fuck me if I just don't keep my eye on them every second, and be incredibly demanding.
Yeah. See, it's crazy how making a film can be the greatest thing that you've ever experienced in your life, or the most horrible thing you've ever experienced in your life. Just
when we were actually shooting Spooky, before things really came to a head with this financier, I would wake up every morning like practically dancing and singing because my God, I'm making a movie.
yeah.
You know, it was like suddenly this thing I'd been working towards for so much time became a reality, and that but I was also under the delusion that from there it would be just like so much easier, and I have, because the rule in those days is make a film, and if it makes money, you will probably get another film financed without too much problem.
Mm-hmm.
But after Spookies got sort of taken out of our hands, got turned into a somewhat different film, we never, up until very recently, up until just a few years ago with the Blu-ray release, we could not use it in our careers or our attempts to get other films made. Spookies was not taken very seriously. That was, exclusively was looked upon very negatively. Although some people started to, and after a certain time, people started noticing that, gee, the monster effects are really pretty good.
Mm-hmm. They were. I thought they were very good.
They were, yeah. So it's gotten. I think people have the proper attitude towards it now, and I'm able to look at it and not feel ill at this point, because for so long it was just I couldn't feel pleased about anything in it. There's almost, and I told people this before, but like almost every cut from one shot to the next is different than what we had originally done.
Right. See, when I first started acting, I got a commercial job, but it was like a industry. I forgot what they're called, but it's where you're like, a what?
Industrial film?
Yeah, it was an industrial film, and I was so excited. I didn't really know what that was, but I was just like, yay, I got a part. And then, so I flew to Orlando, and then the night before, they send me a script that's like 30 pages long. Like, this is like 3 hours before I go in. And then they go, and I'm like, I can't learn 30 pages in 3 hours. And they go, we'll have a teleprompter. And then I was like, okay. So then I get there, and they go, we don't have a teleprompter, so just try to do it. And I'm like,
That sounds like every low-budget production
I was like, I can't. Like, and they're like, well, here, I'll just hold the paper up, and you try to read it off. And that was my first thing that I ever did. And I went from being so excited, it's like I get to fly somewhere, I get to do this. And then I was so sad, and then the company like got rid of it, and they never even used it. And they loved my audition, and I did like a little mini commercial for it, and they ruined it. And then like I almost didn't want to do it anymore because of that. So like it sucks when something that you're so excited about is messed up by other people, But I get that.
I certainly can identify with that. I think a lot of it is, and this goes not just for film, but for all kinds of professions, but people who are supposed to be professionals or are supposed to know what they're doing, not everybody necessarily does. Not every professional is an artist or even cares about what the quality of something really is. I think the filmmakers I admire usually go into it with a certain amount of technical ability and etc. But at the same time, they have an aesthetic. They see something in their head that they're trying to get onto a motion picture screen. A lot of directors don't see anything in their heads.
Right. Yeah. I get that. I guess if like a lot of financiers and stuff like that, maybe not all the time, but it seems like a lot of them, they don't know, they're not artistic sometimes, so it's hard to get across to them.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, people get into film and become directors for many different reasons. I think a lot of people do it just simply
Yeah, and just monetizing art in general is a weird thing to try to do, you know, because you got to make it fit so everybody can get it and like want it and like it, and but it's just a personal thing also, so it's a weird thing to try to combine.
And like I told you, I mean, Spooky suddenly became a film that people began to recognize and know, and a lot of people went and bought the Blu-ray and saw it, and suddenly everybody knows Spookies, and suddenly all these people love Spookies. And I have people every day now telling me that they love Spookies.
I did.
At one time, a few decades ago, I would have situations like friends of mine would want to see my films and be like, "Oh, we want to see Spookies." No, I don't think you do. And they would hound me, and eventually I'd give in. And I had one of these situations where I throw on Spookies, 10 minutes later they're demanding I turn it off.
What? That's crazy.
For the same reasons I said before, that it's a frustrating film in terms of you start to follow what you think is the story, but it doesn't go anywhere. It's going somewhere else, and you don't know what the fuck to make of it.
I liked that though, kind of like because it would kind of the whole time I was like, like wait, like I didn't get bored because I was always like, what is happening? Like,
I mean, from my perspective, I mean, I have obviously certain feelings about it because it was a film myself and my friends and partners made, and it got turned into something entirely different, and we did not feel that what we tried to do came through quite as we had hoped. On the other hand, if Spooky is a movie that I did not have anything to do with and I just saw it, I would probably have a good time with it like a lot of other people.
yeah.
Because in terms of the fact that it's got stories that are sort of competing for attention, and neither of them quite come together in a way that makes sense. I mean, almost every in the '80s, almost every other Italian horror movie was like that.
Right.
You know, especially some of the zombie movies where you feel like they took pieces of 3 different films and threw them together and hoped for the best.
They did do that. Yeah. Well, I like the thing about Spookies though is it's like bam, 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 bam. There's like, and then crazy, like there's always different like this woman has no skin. All right, now this like statue turned into a like goblin or something. So it's always like boom, boom, boom.
From the start, I mean, like I said, Spookies was a film we were sort of told by the backer that he wanted to make a tip-off of The Evil Dead. I mean, he just said, quite bluntly, I want to film just like The Evil Dead. And it was like not our goal at the time to steal or rip off another film or anything. So we did what we could with that basic scenario. I mean, we sort of skirted the edges a lot, and originally he wanted a bunch of teenagers. And at the time, I mean, I felt then this way, and I feel this way now, but I feel like having a bunch of teenagers as your main characters just so you can kill them all is like a cliche that does not need to be repeated again. You know,
Well, it wasn't as cliche then though.
no, but they're still going with this. I mean, I still will see movies made, you know, this year that like a bunch of teenagers go camping in the woods. It's like, you know, fuck that.
So what was the deal with Street Trash? How'd you get involved in that?
Street Trash, I had gone to school for film at the School of Visual Arts and also at the State University in Purchase, New York. And I had a teacher at both those schools, Roy Frumpkins, who was the writer and the central producer, probably. I guess he raised most of the money on Street Trash. And I was working when he was writing Street Trash. I was working on Spookies, and he knew I had just worked as done this job as the production manager and the central producer on this film, and he wanted to bring me into Street Trash, and I somehow felt really positive. And even though it's always hard to raise money for a film, I thought somehow that you're going to get this money and we'll make this film, and we did.
Yeah, that's an interesting deal. Like, so there are these hobos that get a hold of this liquor that like melts you, and then you explode. It was very crazy. I liked it a lot.
Again, it was intended to be something like really unorthodox at the time. I mean, it was like a mixture of genres. It was, on the one hand, extreme, potentially X-rated gore, except that the X-rated gore consisted of
Right, because people would think you were.
Yeah,
And
they would automatically assume that, plus it would restrict where it could play and other things that come into play.
so, what did they do to like make you melt? They just have like tubes everywhere
Oh,
on
I
you.
didn't know. I didn't. I'm not one of the melting.
Explode, right?
No, I'm the guy who gets his dick cut off. You have to have
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
got my dick cut off. It was traumatic, but I managed to live with it. And that was the thing that when I first read it in the script that other people, one of our chief like makeup persons read this script and said, "This is just a joke for people reading the script, right? You're not going to shoot this." And we apparently were. And it's one of those things that like it's sort of it's continued. The film somehow. Someone pointed this out to me about a year ago. That, because I've had what I consider a frustrating career because I spent an awful lot of time doing stuff, and largely in one part because of Spooky. Spooky should have been a stepping stone to a lot of other potential films, and there was no way for us at the time to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
And for years after, it was tough to capitalize on it because after its initial VHS release, it became not that easy to even see it.
Yeah, I'm always worried I'm gonna be like Van Gogh, and then I'm gonna die, and then like 70 years later, everybody's like, "You're a genius."
I really think that happens to a lot of people. I think it's unavoidable. I don't know how you can get around it. I think the odds are a little bit better nowadays because there's a chance for you to do something and to have it seen and to get seen all over the world, and maybe you'll make no money from it, but you might start to get recognized and people might start to talk about your film. And I think that nowadays the goal, really, if you're a filmmaker, should be to just get out there and make your film because you can make movies now for so much less money. There's not all the financial risk there once was. And there still is, but it's not like you don't have to be concerned that there's going to be some disaster and that the film will be released and will just simply not attract an audience.
Yeah, everybody can do it, really. Like, I mean, the technology now is nuts. Like, I'm sitting in a room with lighting on a green screen, and we're going to be in some sort of zombie apocalypse talking, and that's just me messing with it at my house. So, I mean, you can do anything if you, like, if you're knowledgeable, you have the tools now to do whatever you want, really. It's really great.
Yeah, I mean, as you said earlier, I mean, I agree. I think it's made a lot of filmmakers lazier simply because it's so much easier to just do basic things at this point. And it's at the point where, in the past 5 years, I've seen a lot of what I guess would be considered major studio releases where I feel like they just got a guy with a handheld camera and told the actors to improvise.
Right. I think, though, even though it's affecting major films negatively, I think that for creative, passionate people, this is a very great time, because you got what you need, and you can make it happen now, and there are avenues for people to see things. Even if you were to just put it on YouTube or whatever, people can see it,
Yes.
It's not just sitting at your house or whatever and trying to show it.
I mean, and people have taken advantage of that, and there are now literally tens of thousands of direct-to-video, incredibly cheaply made horror movies more than anything else that are out there now, and they range from absolutely the worst things imaginable to some very creative effort by people that are finding a way to get what they can do out there.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. I think that that's a very positive thing that's happening right now. So for the people watching, is there anything that you want them to know about, or anything that you're doing that you want to tell them, or anything like that?
Well, let's see. Two things that I have to mention. One that some people may already at least be aware of. One of them is Street Trash, which it's interesting because Spooky's only really got what I would call mainstream. I don't know if it's even mainstream, but it's like there's an awareness of it amongst horror fans that there simply wasn't prior to it coming out. But that and Street Trash both seem to have, they're still loved and they're still watched.
Mm-hmm.
Which a lot of movies, including a lot of big Hollywood movies from times years ago aren't as well liked. Aren't as people don't keep going back to watch them again and again. I feel there's a certain love and affection identification people have with genre films that doesn't exist with necessarily, straight dramas or so much of the stuff that comes out of the big studios. So I feel extremely fortunate in that it's like Spookies. I never expected to see accepted the way it has been. I was resigned to it being universally hated for the rest of my life.
No, I think it's like Back to the Future kind of with they made it, and it's definitely like of its time, but it hit all these like endearing things about the era it was in that made it like special, you know. And I think that Spookies did that, and I think Street Trash did that. I think they both like they made themselves endearing and interesting, you know.
It's interesting because a number of people said, "Oh, both films are so popular because they're able to capitalize on the '80s nostalgia." And my feeling is that's probably true right now because we're sort of at the height of '80s nostalgia these days. But at the same time, both films, sort of did manage to ride out the years. And Street Trash was available and out there. It was continuing to be seen. It was continuing to get shown at film festivals and screened here and there. And then Spookies, as soon as it became more widely available. I mean, a few years ago, before the Blu-ray came out, 35mm prints of Spookies showed up, like several of them still in existence. And they started to play theaters. The Alamo Draft House was playing it in their theaters around the country.
Cool.
And at this time, I would always find out about these screenings like after the fact. I was never invited or informed. It would always be like, "Oh, well, did you hear Spookies is screening in Texas tomorrow night?"
Wow.
So still, it was frustrating because there was no way to capitalize on this or make something out of it to come off with a little bit of an advantage. And so I had to wait really for the Blu-ray to come out, and what that led to is I have my one partner Tom Doran passed away a few years ago. He and Brendan Faulkner were the co-directors of Spookies, and the film I literally haven't stopped in terms of just I'm doing podcasts and interviews continuously. There is a real continued interest and a demand to know about the films, to talk to me about them, and I've become the unofficial official voice of Spookies at this point, certainly.
That's
because,
cool.
Because I made the effort, and I think it's been good. It's been therapeutic for me too, and that it sort of helped to erase a lot of the negativity that had come out of that experience, where I felt it was, for years I had to write it up as its own loss. There were times my partner Tom, before he passed away, I was sensing that there was sort of a growing awareness and that sort of a little cult was forming around Spookies, and he was adamant and he refused to believe that. He said there is no cult that no one wants to see Spookies. I refuse to believe there is a cult for Spookies.
I don't think that the 80s nostalgia for those type of movies, I don't think that that's going to change because stylistically, I think that stylistically there's nothing else like it, and it captures something vital that is going to affect those type of movies forever. So I think that they will always have. Okay. Yeah. Yes. But I think that style and that type of horror movie is gonna basically be around forever. And since that's when it was pioneered, I think it will always be important.
I agree, and I think the entertainment value remains.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? It's like I feel the same way about certain like horror movies from say the '50s, where there's an aesthetic and a style, and it's sort of in a time capsule, and it's always going to be probably as amusing and as interesting to me as it was when it was first made.
Yeah, it's like a style in itself, like those '50s movies that cost like $30 to make, where the acting is like really bad, and like you know what I'm saying. It's just like that's hilarious, and that will always be hilarious. And like the really crappy monster that's just like a guy in a sleeping bag with eyes on top of it, you know. It's funny. It's just like its own.
Exactly, and it's so interesting to me that there's been especially in the past, I'd say, decade or so, there's rejection by fans of things like CGI, etc. Not that they're entirely rejecting it, but there's a big desire to see older type of effects. And in fact, so many people doing genre films are very conscious of that and are making an effort to do old school effects, knowing that fans are probably going to complain if they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a human nature to want to see real things, you know? Like, that's what. Because there are no stakes in things that are not real, you know? If I see a CGI guy punch another CGI guy, I know that's not
You
a
know,
real.
my partner Tom had a diatribe about this after like a few of the Marvel movies that come out, and he and I had we were big comic book fans, and we never thought there would be movies of this scale and quality for Marvel comic books. But at a certain point, he just said it was after like I think it was when they did maybe the Civil War film or something that he said yeah, I used to love all these characters and everything, but I don't want to just see a bunch of cartoons fighting each other. I want to see like people.
Right. Yeah. I like a lot of the Marvel movies. I feel like they're going downhill now.
They are, but I got to tell you, for a long time, I was shocked at how consistent the quality was and how entertaining they were without any of them taking like a real nosedive.
I think that I used to, before I did this show, I did movie reviews. And me and my friend would go sit in the theater, and immediately when the credits rolled, we would shoot in the theater and then get thrown out, and that was normally the end of the review. So I said when we watched Endgame, I was like, this was not as good, and I think this is where it's going to start losing traction, because Infinity War was an incredible film, and then I felt like it was started to slowly decline, and so far it seems like I was right. But I mean, I hope not. I want them to be good, you know. I like that stuff too.
Yeah, and I think I sort of thought, for me, the death knell for this type of thing started when Marvel started doing like a dozen TV shows almost simultaneously, and I just realized, wow, in the next few years they're just going to saturate the market with so much that they're going to lose in the end.
Yeah, I was surprised it didn't do that with just all the movies, honestly. Like I was like, when is this gonna happen? But it didn't. But I have a live show that I have to be at in like 30 minutes. So I have to go. But thank you very, very much for talking to me. It's been really fun.
Thank you for having me.
You're a fun guy. I've really enjoyed this.
I enjoyed talking to you. I guess I'll wait for you to post when you're going to post this. You post on YouTube, right?
Well, I do a lot of stuff. I do YouTube. I do Facebook. A lot of it. I do really, really well on Facebook. I do some stuff on Instagram, but I'll keep you in the loop about everything, and I'll send everything to you. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you a lot.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
I'll keep you posted. I'll see you later, buddy.
All right.
Have a good night.
Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Take care, man.
Bye-bye.